You're listening to Mind Hacks for Quitting Porn, Episode 8, Pain. Hello there. I'm Stephen McConnell. I'm a life coach. I'm a Christian. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But no matter who you are, I hope this podcast helps you in your struggle with quitting porn, helps you to better manage your sexual desire, and helps you believe again in a future that will be bright for you. When we don't want to do something, we often let pain be the reason that we can't. Children learn this from a really young age. My son used to hurt himself during our bedtime routine almost every night. He'd find a way, some kind of owie, to try to prolong his bedtime, or when I asked him to do chores, suddenly his toe bump became a limp. Now, when I ask our youngest son to help clean up, his response is often, "No, me can't. He's too heavy," with toys he was literally just playing with. That isn't to say that there isn't real pain out there, just that the primitive brain tends to overreact to pain. This overreaction can either look like pouting, complaining, and essentially sitting around accomplishing nothing, or it could even be seeking pleasures and comforts to compensate for the pain. Maybe this has happened to you, where you found yourself trying to drown out pain with a pleasurable activity, like viewing pornography. I'm not saying that seeking comfort when we are hurt is wrong, just that we have choices in how we go about managing our pain. We can read a book, talk to a friend, soak in a hot tub, go for a walk, find some medication, volunteer, or a host of other possibilities that won't leave us feeling mentally and emotionally worse when they're over, which is exactly what happens when we binge on pornography to try to cope with our pain. Some people, through no fault of their own, live in moderate to severe chronic pain day and night. But isn't it interesting that the people who live in chronic pain and yet seem to accomplish so much are also the people that we admire the most? Perhaps you can think of someone like that. In my experience, such people usually don't like to draw attention to their personal suffering. So I won't share details about those I'm well acquainted with who fit this category, but I found some good examples. Florence Nightingale, considered the founder of modern nursing, rose to fame caring for wounded soldiers in the Crimean War, making rounds at night, improving hygiene, and implementing hand washing at the hospital. It is believed that she developed chronic fibromyalgia from a severe infection during the war, and yet despite that, she went on to spend the next 50 years, or until she died, educating others on nursing best practices with her prolific writing and skills in statistics. She was often bedridden, but continued her writing and advising at schools whenever possible. Stories like this amaze me, y'all. Writing books in bed because you're sick? Wow. In another story, one of our former presidents, JFK, who famously passed the Civil Rights Act of 1964, also suffered from severe chronic pain. After a 1937 football injury that got worse in World War II, JFK underwent multiple failed surgeries, including one that inserted a metal plate into his lower back to fuse his L5 vertebra to his sacrum. I don't know about you guys, but that sounds awful. And despite his own hidden personal suffering, we have his famous quote, "Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country." I'm really not trying to get political here, guys. His politics happened way before I was born, but I think there's some inspiration we can draw from his story. And if you don't like politics, perhaps you can relate to a couple of outstanding examples of those who handled pain well from the Bible. One is Paul, who traveled around all the Gentile nations preaching the gospel despite his described thorn in the flesh. We don't know whether that was a mental or physical suffering that he dealt with, just that obviously he thought it was painful. But he continued on with his ministry regardless, sharing his conversion story and his understanding of faith and other principles of the gospel with anyone that would listen. Another such individual is someone who the Bible calls a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. His name is Jesus. My takeaway here is that we can use pain as an excuse and let it become a liability or a disability, or we can let pain teach us something worthwhile. For example, when we stop or slow down to pay attention to the pain, we may also pause to consider, what does my body really need right now? And what does it need more of in general? How can I better take care of my body? And what about my mind? Am I being kind to myself in my internal dialogue? Am I refusing to participate in the blame game, whether blaming myself or others for my pain? Am I quieting restless thoughts and focusing on what I want to achieve? From the mental reflection, we may even take it a step further into spiritual reflection. What do I need spiritually? What do I need to change in my life? What do I need to let go of? And what would I like to pursue in my life? And what would be worth sacrificing for? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that most people do or even should consider all of those questions every time that they feel pain. Just that occasionally, pain gives us a little more motivation to reflect than if everything was going exactly how we wanted it to. Pain can help us prioritize. It can help us see what really matters. Appreciating our pain from this point of view can help us cope with it. But too often, we give in to the primitive brain and take the completely opposite approach. We can make ourselves sick harping on how unfair and unjustified our pain is. That it wasn't our fault. We don't deserve this. Why me? Why now? The hard truth is that our physical pain wouldn't be nearly so bad if it weren't for us layering emotional pain on top of it. You may believe that it's just inevitable to be grouchy when you're in pain, but I'll tell you, that is a learned behavior, and it doesn't serve us when we do that. It's like kicking ourselves when we're already down. The more we focus on the pain, the worse that it gets. This has actually been scientifically proven. In 2018, the University of Colorado Boulder imaged the brain of study participants using fMRI while exposing them to non-harmful amounts of heat. The participants didn't know that the amount of heat that they were feeling was unrelated to a visual that they were watching that alternated between the words low and high. So when they saw cues that the heat was high, they reported the most amount of heat at that time, even though that was wrong. And the MRI showed that areas of the brain related to fear and threat response were lighting up, not when the heat actually was high, but when they expected it to be. In another study on chronic pain published in 2020 by medical researchers in Tehran, they found that participants who were taught to reduce catastrophizing about their pain, that means they went through mental exercises with a professional to stop expecting the worst possible outcome, those participants not only felt less anxious and depressed, but they also reported less physical pain in their 3-month and 6-month follow-up assessments. So there was no special physical therapy, only mental help, and the amount of pain that these participants experienced was reduced. What these and other studies show is that chronically focusing on our pain actually grows the neural pathways in our brain to increase pain perception. This means that over time, we will experience even more pain just by overthinking it, by overly paying attention to the pain that we are currently experiencing. I don't know about you guys, but after learning about that, I never want to think about my pain again. Not that any of us do, but the real question is, are we willing to let go of our fear of pain, all the needless worrying and catastrophizing, in order to experience relief? That doesn't mean we stop taking care of ourselves. It just means that we do our best and then allow the pain to be painful without fighting it all the time. It's in that allowing that we lose the urgency to turn to porn, alcohol, or other false remedies instead. Again, for my Christian friends, one thought that really helps to ground me in painful circumstances is that it's really hard to make the case that we don't deserve the pain that we experience when the Son of God went through so much more than what we are going through, and he did so voluntarily. We can always take comfort in the fact that our pain helps us deeper appreciate his pain and sacrifice for us. My friends, I hope this thought will serve you, or that you can find others like it that help you through the pain. Be kind to yourself, be kind to others. We never know what kind of pain they're in. And in honor of not focusing on this painful subject, I've made this episode a little shorter. You're welcome. Take care, guys. Thank you for joining me in the episode today. For those interested in one-on-one help, claim your free consultation with me at GratefulLifeCoaching.com. That's GratefulLifeCoaching.com.